Oh, it needs to come. Right. Can you hear me all right? Can you hear me? Good.
I'll turn it up at the back. It's a bit too quiet. I think that's a good. As long as it doesn't
Yeah.
interfere with your.
No, it'll be perfect, actually. It's fine. Thanks very much. Yeah. Yeah. Well, good morning. Good morning, all, and welcome to the service today on the theme of resilience. Lovely to be back at Brighton, despite the weather. Lovely to be back with you. So we begin, as we normally do, by lighting the chalice candle. The chalice candle of our free faith, standing symbolically in an open communion cup, a chalice open to all. May it flare boldly for us today. In the Christian calendar, today is the first Sunday of Advent. So let this be for us also the first candle of Advent. A candle of hope, hope that burns through the darkness, lighting our way despite the gloom. And our opening words this morning come from the Reverend Cliff Reed, a prayer poem for Advent, awaiting conjunction. As we kindle our Advent flame, the shepherds on their dark hillside, somewhere out of time, are undisturbed by angels. In their fabled palaces, the Magi have yet to see the new star and wonder what it means. Myth and history await conjunction. The timeless tale awaits retelling, and hearts await its promise of a new beginning. Words from Cliff Reed to begin our service today. Now let's sing the first hymn of the morning, and it's hymn number 44 in the purple hymn book, Sing Your Faith. Hymn number 44, Give Thanks for Life. Come now to a time for prayer and reflection. And I invite you to open your hearts in prayer. Advent in the Christian calendar is a time of looking toward the coming of the Christ child at Christmas, awaiting for the light when patience, resilience, and hope are needed. Perhaps the rich symbolism of Advent can draw us in, whatever our beliefs. This is a dark time of year. The morning light struggles to break through. The evenings draw in ever closer. The nights draw out longer and longer. And the season can mirror darkness within us all. Shadows rise in us. Fears and worries can mount. Where can we find relief? Hope shows the way. That pinprick of light in the darkness speaks to our hearts of a greater light that is to come. A light that returns as the seasons turn again, as we surely know that they will. In this Advent season, as we move towards Christmas, can we see a deeper truth in the turning seasons? Can we sense the light of the divine, however understood? The light that comes from the source of all life, the source of all love, within and without us. Light that touches the core of each one of us, bringing healing to those hidden places, the hurts and fears that lie deep within. May this healing light transform our lives this Advent as we move toward Christmas and the birth of the new. May it be. Amen. Well, our first reading this morning is from St. Paul's second letter to the Corinthians, and it's from chapter 12. And he's been talking about the wonderful revelations he had of God. So wonderful were these revelations that he was taken up to the third heaven, he writes. But he says, I realized I don't want to boast about these. He said, and he writes now from verse 6, If I wanted to boast, I would be no fool in doing so, because I would be telling the truth. But I won't do it, because I don't want anyone to give me credit beyond what they can see in my life or hear in my message, even though I have received such wonderful revelations from God. So to keep me from being proud, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger from Satan to torment me and keep me from becoming proud. 3 different times I begged the Lord to take it away, this thorn. Each time he said, "My grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness." So now I am glad to boast about my weakness, so that the power of Christ can work through me. That's why I take pleasure, Paul writes, in my weaknesses and in the insults, hardships, persecutions, and troubles that I suffer for Christ. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Those words from the second letter to the Corinthians. Let's have another hymn now, hymn number 35 in the purple hymn book. Find a stillness, keep a stillness, a lovely Transylvanian hymn, hymn number 35. Please sit. Notice I have to stand over there when I'm singing, because so I'm assured by everyone I sing completely out of tune. I love singing though, but you know the feeling when you get told it enough times. Well, the second reading today is from the letters of John Keats, the English poet, early 19th century English poet, who died at 25 or 26 from consumption, but in his short life produced an extraordinary body of poetry. And he's writing in his letters some of them very long, including this one, but the extract I'm going to read isn't too long. He's writing about how the life is often called a vale of tears, a valley we travel through, full of suffering and tears. And he says this with salvation in heaven to follow, and he calls this a simplistic Christianity, and says, rather, let's call it something else. And he says, call the world rather than the vale of soul making. Then you will find out the use of the world. There may be intelligences or sparks of the divinity in millions, but they are not souls until they acquire identities, till each one is personally itself. Intelligences are atoms of perception, he writes. They know and they see and they are pure. In short, they are God. How then are souls to be made, though? How then are these sparks, which are God, to have an identity given them, so as ever to possess a bliss peculiar to each one's individual existence? How but in the medium of a world like this one? This point I sincerely wish to consider, because I think it is a grander system of salvation than the Christian religion, or rather, it is a system of spirit creation. I can scarcely express what I but dimly perceive, and yet I think I perceive it. That you may judge the more clearly, I will put it in the most homely form possible. I will call the world a school, instituted for the purpose of teaching little children to read. And I will call the human heart the horn book, the lesson book, used in that school. And I will call the child able to read the soul, made from that school and in its horn book. Do you not see how necessary a world of pains and troubles is to school an intelligence and make it a soul? A place where the heart must feel and suffer in 1,000 diverse ways. As various as the lives of men and women are, so various become their souls, and thus does God make individual beings souls, identical souls of the sparks of his own essence. This appears to me, writes Keats, a faint sketch of a system of salvation which does not affront our reason and our humanity. So from the letters of John Keats. We come again now to a time for prayer and reflection and for silence. Begin with some words of the great poet and thinker, Bengali poet and thinker Rabindranath Tagore. A prayer poem. Let me not pray to be sheltered from dangers, but to be fearless in facing them. Let me not beg for the stilling of my pain, but for the heart to conquer it. Let me not look for allies in life's battlefield, but to my own strength. Let me not crave in anxious fear to be saved, but hope for the patience to win my freedom. Grant me that I may not be a coward, feeling your mercy in my success alone. But let me find the grasp of your hand in my failure. Words of Rabindranath Tagore. move deep into a time of prayer now. And at a time when war and violence are raging once again in the Middle East, with killings and terrible destruction, and war continuing in Ukraine, it is hard to have hope. Yet it is right to continue to believe in peace, to speak up for peace. And for this, to do this, we need hope. We know that wars can end, and that wars do end, and that peace is eventually reached. So may we hope and pray for peace in our world, even in seemingly bleak times. May this be our prayer. And I invite you now, as we move towards a time of silence, to give your thoughts to others. For all those in need, may we send healing thoughts. For the sick in mind and in body. For all those suffering the effects of war and famine. For those living in fear. For those who've become embittered. May they find release. And let's remember those in our own community, in this congregation, who cannot be with us today. May our thoughts go out to them. And what about in your own family? Is there anyone in need of your healing thoughts? So I invite you now to hold in your mind someone in need of your loving thoughts and prayers, to focus on them as we move into a time of stillness. Oh, thank you to Kathy for playing so beautifully. Wonderful music. Oh, let's sing another hymn now. Hymn number 24. Hymn number 24, Come Sing a Song with Me, A Rose in the Wintertime. Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you. Beautiful piano. Thank you. So resilience is our theme. Well, in that first reading we had today, you heard the Apostle Paul talking of how he was given a thorn in his flesh to torment him. A messenger from Satan, he calls it. And what is this thorn? Well, presumably it's some kind of acute physical ailment. We're not sure what exactly. Some intense pain that jabs Paul's side. But who gave him this thorn? Well, Paul seems to suggest that God gave him the thorn, or at least God could take it away. He tells his Corinthian audience that 3 times he begged God to remove the thorn, but each time God refused. Why? Why would a loving God not want to help such a devoted apostle as St. Paul? Why not ease his pain? Isn't it very callous of God to ignore his pleas? Well, Paul tells us he believes God refuses to release him from his pain because this thorn in his flesh keeps him from becoming proud. Paul has been speaking of personal feelings. What were those? That his extraordinary past revelations of God, when he was taken up to the 3rd heaven, these, he says, give him much to boast about, much to be proud about. And he could easily do that, he says, go around boasting about his special relationship with God. But the reply he hears from God to each plea to remove the thorn is, my grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. Paul tells us he's taken this so much to heart that he now takes pleasure in weaknesses, in his weaknesses, and in the insults, hardships, persecutions, and troubles that he suffers for Christ. What? Well, I'll tell you something. I don't take pleasure in insults and all those troubles that come my way. Not at all. I become indignant, and I dwell, even brood, on these misfortunes. I'll get you back for that. And I wish these troubles had never happened. Take pleasure in them? Not likely. So what's Paul on about, do you think? Well, he ends this passage from the 2nd letter to the Corinthians, this passage we heard, by making a strange claim. For when I am weak, then I am strong. What on earth does that mean? Well, from the suggestions Paul gives, he's saying that humility, not pride or boasting, is vital for his work as an evangelist. In fact, it's vital for all of us, he suggests. Why, I wonder? Could it be that a certain humility allows us to see our weaknesses and our faults, to admit them to ourselves? And this, in turn, could even allow us to change a little bit. But if we can't face our faults, we certainly won't be able to change. So, be weak, Paul suggests. Be humble. Be willing to learn at all times, to learn from others and from all that we encounter in life, however unpleasant the experiences may be. But you know what? I find it very hard to admit my faults, to admit when I'm wrong, to be open to learning from others, and learning even from insults and persecution and all the troubles that come my way. Why don't they just go away, these troubles? I wish I'd never got into this, never done that stupid thing, never met that person. But you know what? I did. Oh yes, I did. I did do those silly things. I did do those unforgivable things. That was me. Does this dialogue ring a bell with you? Sometimes we just have to accept we are to blame. It was us who messed up. No, we're not always right, not always great at doing the right thing. But it can be hard, can't it, to admit this? I find it so. My pride keeps getting in the way. And you know, I can understand that sometimes it may be good to be humble, even to be weak, as Paul says, but surely not all the time. Surely not all the time. What if there's other ways of looking at this, other ways that we could shed light on this question? Let's look at the second reading now, that extract from the letters of John Keats, that early 19th century English poet, romantic poet. And Keats tells us he rejects what he sees as a simplistic view of the world, that it's a vale of tears, a valley of tears that we travel through in life. Yes, he concedes, there is much suffering and sadness in the world. But Keats asserts we should rather call the world a vale we travel through. We should rather call it the vale of soul making. What does he mean by this? He goes on to say, if you call the world that, you will find out the use of the world. Meaning, we have intelligence as small children, Keats writes in that letter you heard, but we do not yet have souls, he's arguing. Through our lives, though, we will need to forge our unique identities, you'll remember he's writing, as human beings, to become human beings, our own individual souls. And how will this be done, though? Through our encounters with the world, the good and the bad. Keats compares life to a school where, like children, we learn lessons from a hornbook, a lesson book. This, he says, he tells us, is the school for making souls. Then he asks, do you not see how necessary a world of pain and troubles is to school an intelligence and make it a soul? A place where the heart must feel and suffer in 1,000 diverse ways. So this is where we learn hard lessons, lessons we would rather not learn, that life is not just about us and our pleasures. It's a world where others have equal entitlements. And it's a world of birth, growth, decay, and death. And there's no escape from this in the natural world of which we are part. So what precisely does Keats, who died at a ridiculously early age himself, what does he mean by soul making. I can only suggest he means the forging of character, that we must allow life, the good, the bad, and the terrible, to forge our identities, to forge our souls, in fact, souls strong and resilient enough to survive and even to thrive. But of course, there's also a randomness in nature, isn't there? Accidents happen, big and small. It's not our fault, nothing to do with us, but these accidents happen. Earthquakes and tsunamis can sweep life away. If we survive these, though, the key question will be, as ever, how do we respond? Respond to what life has thrown at us. We may not be able to control events. Very often we can't. But we can control how we respond. And this is where humility, openness, and respect for others come in. In fact, love for others. These are the qualities so desperately needed in each of us and in all of humanity in our world. It's where character shows itself, where our souls show themselves, as Keats suggests, as both human and divine. They have been forged in that veil of soul making. So we have come through, and we keep going forward. We could collapse, but we don't. We keep going. We have learned resilience. And I think now we may finally understand what St. Paul means too when he says, "When I am weak, then I am strong. When I am weak, then I am strong." And so will we be able to say it with him? I trust that we will be able to, both now and in the future. May it be. Amen. Well, let's sing our final hymn now. And I think Kathy has chosen a different tune, which I think will be a better one. So thank you, Kathy. And it's Praise to God, the world's creator. It's hymn number 137, 137. So as we go forward into the world once more, may we know that both joys and struggles await us, and so may we ask that we keep a good heart, that we go ever forward, learning from all our experiences, and through this achieve both love and joy. Amen.